My dear listener, let's listen to a beautiful paranormal romance today. The story, The Man Made of Moonlight. The first thing Lena noticed about him was that he cast no shadow. Not in the shop, not on the cobblestone outside, not even under the single yellow bulb she kept burning above the door like an invitation or a warning, depending on the night. She should have closed early. She always closed early on full moon nights because the candles behaved strangely then. They burned backwards, slow, then fast, then slow again, as if something outside was breathing on them through the walls. But she hadn't closed, and now there was a man standing in her candle shop at midnight, and he had walked in without the bell above the door making a single sound. Lena made candles the way her grandmother had, by hand, by feel, by something she couldn't explain to anyone who hadn't grown up watching a woman pour wax in the dark and whisper to it like it was alive. She sold them in small glass jars with simple labels: sleep, clarity, remember. People in town thought she was quirky, harmless, a little odd in the way that small town candle shop owners sometimes were. They didn't know that when Lena said remember, she meant it literally. That if you lit one of her candles in a room where something had been forgotten, like a name, a feeling, a secret, that thing came back quietly like smoke. She had learned very early not to tell anyone this. People didn't want their forgotten things back. Not really. You make remember candles, the man said. His voice was low, unhurried, like the water moving under ice. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the shelf. I make a lot of things, she said carefully. I know, he turned, and she saw his eyes then. Pale silver, the exact color of moonlight on still water, and completely, utterly still. Not calm, still, like something that had stopped moving a very long time ago. I need one, he said. Not to remember a feeling, to remember a name. Lena set down the jar she was holding. Whose name? She asked. He replied, mine. His name, he told her, had been taken. Not stolen, taken. There was a difference, he said, and she believed him, though she couldn't have said why. Stolen things could be found. Taken things were somewhere else entirely, in hands that had every right to hold them, and that was the cruelest kind of loss. He sat at her work table, the one she never let customers sit at, and she didn't ask him to move. She just started working. Beeswax, rosemary, a thread of something her grandmother had called silver root that she had never found at any market, only in the woods behind her house on mornings after rain. "How long have you been without it?" she asked. "Without your name," she meant. "I don't know," she said simply. "I stopped counting when I stopped sleeping." "You don't sleep?" "I can't." He watched the wax melt. "I think it's because I don't dream anymore. And I don't dream because I can't remember who I am well enough to invent a version of him to dream about." Lena was quiet for a while. The flame under the wax pot whispered. "That," she said finally, "is the saddest thing I've ever heard." He agreed. "Yes, it is." She shouldn't have asked him his name. She knew that. When someone tells you their name has been taken, you don't ask what it was. That's like asking someone to show you have a wound before it's healed. But she asked anyway. "I don't know," he said. "That's the point." "Then what do I call you?" He thought about this, pale eyes moving to the window, where the full moon hung low and round and brutal in its brightness. Then back to her. "Whatever you like," he said. "You're the first person who has spoken to me in a long time. I will answer to anything." She felt something shift in her chest. Not love, not yet. Something quieter. The feeling of recognizing a thing you didn't know you had been looking for. "Cael," she said. She didn't know what it came from and where it came from. It arrived in her mouth fully formed, like it had been sitting there waiting. Something crossed his face. Not recognition. Something before recognition. The tremor that comes just before remembering. "That's close," he said softly. "That's very close." She worked for 2 more hours. He didn't leave, and she didn't ask him to. That should have frightened her. A stranger in her shop, past midnight, no shadow, eyes like still water. It should have sent her to the door. Instead, she found herself talking, telling him things she never told anyone, about her grandmother, about the silver root, about the time she had lit a remember candle in her own house and something had come back that she wasn't ready for. An old grief, not her own, older than her. "It ran in the family," she said. "The thing with the candles. My grandmother said her grandmother had it too." "It's not a thing," Cael said. "It's a gift. They are different." "My grandmother said the same thing." Lena kept her eyes on her work. She also said gifts like ours had a cost. "What cost?" Lena poured the wax, watched it settle, smooth and white as snow. "That we would spend our whole lives making things that helped other people remember and forget things ourselves." She paused. She was right. I can't remember my mother's face. I'm sorry, he said. And the way he said, not quickly, not reflectively, but slow and deliberate, like he was choosing to mean it, made her eyes sting. The candle was down and done just before 1 in the morning. She set it between them on the work table. It was pale silver, not from any dye she had added. She hadn't added any color. The color had simply come. Light it, she said. He looked at it for a long moment. What if what comes is something I don't want? Then you will know, she said quietly, and knowing is better than the dark. She reached forward. He reached forward too. She noticed then that his hands were cold, not unpleasantly, the way a breeze is cold, necessary and clean. She struck a match. The flame caught. The smoke that rose from it was the wrong color. Silver white, thick, moving in patterns that didn't match any air current in the room. It curled between them. It smelled like rain on stone, like something ancient and patient finally allowed to speak. Cael went very still. Then he said a name, not out loud. She felt it rather than heard it, felt it pass through the room like a frequency vibrating in the glass jars on her shelves. In the silver root she had braided into the week, in her own chest right between her sternum. She went cold. She knew that name. She had seen it written in her grandmother's journal, the journal she had found tucked behind a loose brick in the fireplace the winter her grandmother died, written in her grandmother's hand, carefully, circled 3 times with a warning beneath it in red ink. If he comes, do not light the candle. The remembering will cost her something too. Lena stood up fast. Her stool scraped the stone floor. You know, she said. You knew what I was before you came here. Cael looked at her. The silver of his eyes were brighter now, the way the moon brightens just before it disappears behind a cloud. I knew what you made, he said. I didn't know you. That's a very careful answer. I'm a very careful person. He paused. Or I was before. Before what? He looked down at the candle, at the smoke still threading upwards. Before I made a deal I didn't understand. He met her eyes. I gave my name to something old in exchange for more time. I thought more time would be enough. His voice was quiet. No self-pity in it, just the flatness of a fact long accepted. It wasn't. More time for what? He hesitated, and in that hesitation, Lena felt the answer arrive in her. Not from him, but from the smoke, from the candle, from the silver root that was her grandmother's and her grandmother's grandmother's before that. The gift that remembered things for other people, finally remembering something for her. For me, she said. The word fell out of her like a stone in the water. You were waiting for me. His expression did not change, but his hands, flat on the work table, curled slowly inwards, like something gripping the edge of a thing it was afraid to lose again. I didn't know your name either, he said. I only knew you exist, eventually. That somewhere in the line there would be one who could make the candle. He looked at the flame. I just had to find you before I forget why I was looking. She should have been angry. She listed the reasons. He had found her deliberately. He had come to her under the cover of a story that was true but not complete. He had let her make a candle her grandmother had warned against. He had let her pay a cost she hadn't agreed to. What did I lose? She asked. Her voice was steadier than she felt. My grandmother said that remembering would cost me something too. He was quiet for a moment. A year, he said. 1 year of your life to put mine back together. Lena, breathe in, breathe out. 1 year, gone, invisible. Already spent in some accounting she could not see. That wasn't your choice to make, she said. No, he said, it wasn't, and I'm sorry. This thing, this time, the words were different. Not chosen carefully, fractured at the edges, like something had been held a very long time and finally dropped. I told myself you would have agreed. I told myself a year was nothing against. He stopped. Against what? He looked at her. Really looked at her. The way he hadn't let himself before. Against the alternative, which was forgetting you entirely. Being too far gone to find you. I could not let that happen. She stood there in the candlelight and looked at a man who had spent there an unknowable year, nameless, shadowless, sleepless, holding on to the fact, the single fact of her existence, like it was the only lit thing in the dark. She was furious. She was absolutely furious. And she did not tell him to leave. He stayed until the candle burned down. They didn't speak much. She made tea. He held the cup without drinking it, as if warmth was enough. Maybe it was. She didn't ask. When the last of the wax was gone and the smoke had thinned to nothing, he stood. He looked different, not visibly, not in any way she could point to, but something had settled in him. The way a house settles at night, the way water settles after the stone had gone under. Will I see you again? She asked. Yes, he said. No hesitation. The certainty of it was startling. I will come back tomorrow night, if you let me. And if not tomorrow, I will wait. You have been waiting a very long time already. Yes, I was. So one more night is nothing. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but the possibility of one. The door of it left open. Or it's everything I haven't decided yet. He walked to the door. The bell above it rang this time, clear and small and perfectly ordinary. He paused with his hand on the frame. Lena, he said. Her name in his mouth sounded like something he had been practicing for years. Private, careful, like a prayer said so many times it had worn gloves. Yeah, she managed. Thank you, he said, for making me remember that I exist. And then he stepped out into the full moon, and she saw it, the shadow that stretched behind him now on the cobblestones, long and thin, and finally, after God knows how long, real. She stood in the doorway and watched him walk away. She did not notice, not until she had turned back inside and caught a reflection in the dark window glass, that her own eyes, brown her entire life, warm and plain and ordinary, had gone the faintest silver at the edges, like something had moved in, or like something had always been there and had just woken up. On the shelf behind her, untouched and unlit, a candle she did not remember making waited in a jar labeled in her own handwriting.